Okay, let's go into the first out here. So here's the thing. We look at the standings right now in Major League Baseball, and it's interesting because, we look at let's start here with the National League because I think it kind of ties into what we're going to be talking about here in the second out a little bit later. The Dodgers right now with a lead in the West, the Phillies and the Brewers leading their divisions. The Diamondbacks and Padres are in. The Braves are in on that last wild card spot in the National League. The Mets 2.5 games behind. And then there seems to be a little bit of a separation. The Giants are 5 back. The Cardinals are 5 back. It seems like the NL Central has kind of cooled off lately. The Reds and the Pirates have kind of fallen back. So we'll start right here in the National League, Dalton. The question is here. Are the National League, and we'll do the same thing in the American League, but are the National League playoff spots kind of set right now?
I think they are. And I'm going to say the same thing in both leagues, but we'll talk about the National League first. You have your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams who all, according to Fangraphs, have an 80% chance or better of making the playoffs. And there's no other team in the NL with greater than a 19% chance of making the playoffs. I mean, that kind of tells the story, right? I mean, the Mets are sitting there at 19%, but after them, it's the Cardinals at 3.6%, the Giants at 3.1%. You look across the board otherwise, you got 99.3 on the Phillies, 100 on the Dodgers, 99 on the Brewers, 96 on the Diamondbacks, 95 on the Padres. And I think that's all pretty accurate. I mean, there really has been these teams really have pulled away from the rest as this has gone along. And, I guess the Mets are the one question mark of can they maybe pass the Braves? I'm going to be honest, I just don't think the Mets are a good enough ball club. I think the Mets are a roughly average 500-ish team this year that has played a little bit better than that. I mean, they're 68 and 63, but you look at what the Mets have on deck, they're going to Arizona. That's the hottest team in baseball, right?
Yeah.
Granted, they follow that with the White Sox, but I mean, the Mets could be out of it if if Arizona sweeps the Mets, they're done. They're hanging by a string. So, I mean, I think it's pretty much you're going to see the Phillies, the Braves, the Brewers, the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks, and the Padres in the playoffs. And that kind of just is what it is at this point. It's just a matter of where the teams land. Where it gets exciting is that, the NL West is still in the air.
Yeah.
Where the wild card teams ultimately land is still somewhat in the air, but I think we know who's going to be there.
Yeah. No, and to be honest, I think I agree with you in the sense that, the Mets run that they had in the summer is over. That's done. And they're an interesting little ball club, but I don't think that I don't think they're better than the Braves. I think the Braves, despite their struggles, are still a team that you can rely on a little bit more than the Mets, especially with pitching. I don't know that a Mets pitching staff can really hold up in a playoff series. And truth be told, because I haven't looked at the standings in a while, I looked earlier today and saw that in the NL Central right now, the Milwaukee Brewers, they're sitting at 75 and 55. They're 20 games over 500. They have a 10-game lead over the Cardinals. If you were to ask me, and we talked about it 2 or 3 weeks ago, where that division lead was 6 games, right? And that was the largest one. And you and I kind of both anticipated that, that might not stay that way because we didn't really see the Brewers get better. We saw the Cardinals did, in fact, get better. And we're I just don't know that they can hold on to it. If you were to tell me 2 weeks ago that this division lead was going to be double digits by the time we talked about it again, I would have been no, I don't see that happening. Does that kind of surprise you where the Brewers are right now and how the rest of the NL Central has seemingly kind of fallen off? The Cardinals right now sitting at just 500. The Cubs are a game under. The Reds are the Reds and the Pirates, I think we kind of both maybe expected to. Yeah, maybe less than the Pirates, but Paul Skeens has really struggled lately. But especially with St. Louis, you and I were both kind of they made some moves that we both really liked. Are you surprised by this?
I mean, I am because I just like look. I thought that all these teams were going to kind of land around 500. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of what it felt like. And you got to credit the Brewers. Like 2 weeks ago, they were going into a week on their schedule where they had 4 with the Dodgers and 3 with the Guardians, and they went 5-2 that week. They split their 4 with the Dodgers 2-2, and they swept the Cleveland Guardians at home.
Wow.
You got to give them credit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they went out and last week they they lost the 2 out of 3 in St. Louis, but then they went and handled business in Oakland. And that 2 week stretch combined with the Cardinals kind of falling off a cliff a bit, and it's over. I mean, as quickly as that division could have got close the other way, it slipped. And I mean, now you're talking 10 games out on August 26th, August 27th, that it's over. Like,
yeah, no,
I mean,
I think it's done. I think that division's done.
yeah.
So let's switch gears here. Let's switch to the American League now, because this is a conversation that I think honestly we could have even expected this to be a little bit tighter. I mean, we've been saying it all summer that this American League wildcard race is going to be pretty tight. There's tons of teams in it. Right now, you got a 5-game separation between the Twins and the Red Sox for that last spot. The Twins being in, right? The Yankees and the Yankees, Guardians, and Astros right now have the divisions. The Orioles are 3 games up on the Royals, who have the next spot, and then it's Royals, Twins. Red Sox are 5 games back. Mariners are 6.5 games back. Rays are 7.5 for the Tigers. And I think mostly we were thinking that the Red Sox and the Mariners were the teams that could sneak in and maybe steal one of those spots. Do we still feel that way, Dalton Brown?
No, I mean, I think I think for Boston, it's over. Like, I think especially when you counter in the fact that they're most likely getting swept in a doubleheader today at home by the Blue Jays. The Reds, I mean, they're down 5-1 in the 6th right now in Game 2. If they don't come back and win that game, they're 67-64. The Red Sox entered today 67-62 with a 23.5% chance of making the playoffs. Stack 2 losses on that number is going to cut in half. I mean, that's where we're at in the season, right?
Yeah.
And I talked about the playoff odds from Fangraphs in the NL because it was stark that every team is either 19% or lower or 80% or higher. It's the same way in the American League. Like, the Red Sox are going to be under 20% after the way today's gone, and the rest of these teams are all 84% or higher. Royals 84, Astros 90, Twins 89, Guardians 95, Orioles 98, Yankees 100. Like, that's chances of making the playoffs. I mean, it's the same story in both leagues where at this point on August 26th, we know who the teams are going to be.
Right.
It's just a matter of what order they fall in. I will say the American League, I think, has the more intriguing races overall. And the NL West can be fun, and we'll talk about how dominant that division has been. But in terms of competitive divisions, Yankees O's 1.5 separates them. That is well up in the air, right? Guardians, Twins, Royals 2.5 separates those 3 teams. That's totally up in the air. Mariners only 4.5 back of the Astros. That's in theory still up in the air, although I don't buy the Mariners' ability to come back in that division at all. But in theory, all 3 of those divisions are still in play. Those wild cards could still shuffle a bit. So I think the American League pennant race is a little bit more intriguing overall right now. But across baseball, 12 teams are going to make the playoffs, and we know who they are already.
Yeah, I don't know that I disagree. I mean, I think and I wouldn't have been surprised if this was going to be the final tally here, because the Red Sox, obviously they've been, I think, a surprise for most of Major League Baseball, where you looked at this roster top to bottom at the beginning of the season, you were just like this is a last place team. You know what I mean? They've got some young guys, but they're pretty underdeveloped. Nobody's going crazy over the Red Sox roster. And the Mariners, I think a lot of people expected the Mariners to do it because of their pitching staff, but I don't think anybody anticipated their offense being this bad. I mean, Julio Rodriguez has been, I think, one of the bigger disappointments in baseball this entire season. Jorge Polanco hitting just over 200 now. You're looking at a roster that's just you're questioning how they can stay competitive, at least based on how poor they are offensively. I mean, as far as batting average is concerned, they're like 15 points into last place in the league. Like they're hitting like 210 as a team. Like that is unbelievably low. So I do think that there is something there. If you and I were to start the year by saying, I just want to see this because I want to see if if either one of us had this, because I still have them here. Nope. And no. If you were to ask us at the beginning of the year that the American League Central was going to put 3 teams into the playoffs, like nobody would have believed us. Nobody would have said that. You and I both had the Twins in the playoffs, and that was it. There was nobody else that was making it. You're looking at a scenario now where the Guardians, the Royals, and the Twins are all pretty much locked in.
Yeah.
Like, that is sick to me.
It's incredible. And I mean, like, if you want to talk about it from a beginning of the season perspective, like the World Series champion Rangers are 11 games under 500 with a 0.1% chance of making the playoffs. The Astros are going to make the playoffs with what might be the worst record of any of the playoff teams in the AL.
Yeah.
It's just been a weird year. I mean, I think Yankees and Orioles at the top of the AL East is not shocking to anyone. I think, I kind of thought the Blue Jays would be there too, but, the AL East is not shocking. The Astros leading the AL West is not shocking, but the Twins and Royals and Guardians all being this competitive, it's a lot of fun. That division hasn't had a whole lot of intrigue for a number of years. I mean, I even got to hand it to the Tigers, man. Like 65 and 66 for the Tigers is absolutely topping expectation.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe part of it is that these teams are getting to play the White Sox so much, but the rest of this division is all exceeding expectations, and they deserve credit for it.
Yeah. By the way, the White Sox right now are 31 and 100. I mean, that is remarkable. How can you be that bad? Like, that is so crazy. This past Friday night, I went to the Yankees-Rockies game. 3-0 Yankee win. Woohoo. I was there with my uncle. It was his birthday. My uncle, his wife, my dad was there as well. And we were looking at the Rockies lineup, and it was like, okay, you have, and the top of the Rockies lineup, like there are recognizable names, right? Ezekiel Tovar, I think you know by now. Ryan McMahon, Brendan Rodgers, like those are decent players, right? Yeah. But like at the bottom of the lineup, you're looking at like Michael Toglia. You're looking at guys that have 12 major league at bats, like just absolute nobodies in the league as of right now. And my uncle was just like, how crazy is this? That this Rockies team is like 15 games better than the White Sox. Like,
now, yeah.
Isn't that remarkable? Like, you look at the Rockies roster, and they give up more runs than anybody in baseball. They have the worst pitching staff than anybody in baseball. You look at their lineup, and it is beyond unimpressive. And they are 17 games better than the Chicago White Sox.
I mean, Mike, preseason, I said the Rockies, I gave a bet out Rockies to have the worst record in baseball at about 3-1 because they play in an awesome division and they're really bad. If you take the White Sox out of it, the Rockies would have the worst record in baseball by about 8 games. Like they're 8 games worse than the A's. The Rockies are. Yeah. They're about they're right
better than the Marlins.
They're right there with the Marlins too. But the Rockies and Marlins are both 16, 17 games up on the White Sox. It's completely absurd.
Historically bad. They are historically bad.